One of our newest members, Eric Kingery, is going to share with us some of the books that he's been using. Eric is new to the hobby, like a lot of you are, and so he's been perusing the various bookstores and found out some great books that he likes. So, Eric, I'll get off here and let you do the share screen.
Okay,
Or I guess
John,
he's
thank
going to
you.
do it live, so just click on speaker view.
When do I need to do anything, or am I okay?
You're on.
Okay. Hi, my name's Eric Carey, and as Daniel just said, to do what he was doing there, that takes a lot of study and work. But obviously, the more you put into something, the more you're going to get out of it. And you can see the dramatic differences. I mean, the pictures he took were just, to me, stunning. And I'm not going to tell you that I understood 80% of what he said, but I can also tell you that for those of you who are interested in astrophotography and have the time and the money and the patience to do it, it is phenomenal. But I want to take you all the way back to the beginning. John has told me that there's a lot of people like me joining the club who would really like to learn more about astronomy and just maybe don't, they know there's a sky, they know it's dark, they know there's stars, but what else? Um, I myself started my astronomy when I was a teenager. I started learning the constellations when I was approximately 13, 12 years old. Uh, got my first 3-inch Edwin scientific telescope. Last time I used that thing, I was in high school. And then there was a hiatus of about 65 years. And now at the end of my time, I'm coming back to astronomy. So I consider myself an advanced beginner. So that's kind of where I am at. But when I started to really re-engage with this stuff was last summer. And I started searching out because I have books, but some of my books go back, 65 years. So, okay, a lot's changed. And I thought, I got to go back and update everything. So my brother sent me an old book that he found at a Goodwill. It was falling apart. It was called Night Watch. And I'm going to move this over so you can see the books, I think. I hope. Can you see that? Okay, this is Night Watch. And I started looking at this thing and I was just stunned by the presentation. Of all of the astronomy books I have seen, for someone who doesn't really know that much at all, this is a step-by-step, cannot fail guide. It's written by Terence Dickinson. It's been through several editions. Terence Dickinson founded the Amateur Astronomy Club in Canada, and this book has been through several editions. But I want to share with you some of the contents. Um, if you're absolutely at the very beginning, this I would recommend highly over anything I've seen. And some of you guys with more experience could probably tell me more. But what I'd like to share with you is the first thing is it goes through the 11 steps of the universe, and it's kind of a progression thing that goes on and on. Um, it is phenomenal. And I've always been just floored by the beauty and the wonder of the heavens, whether just looking up in the night sky at Glacier National Park or, through a telescope that maybe John's had. It's just an amazing experience. If you want to get a sense of the vastness of the cosmos, this is a phenomenal job with, illustrations and paintings. It takes you off to say, okay, so where do you begin? I have a story to tell you. When I was first learning the constellations, I think I was 12 years old, I had a little star finder, and that star finder's right here. And I was looking for the Big Dipper. Well, I thought I found the Big Dipper in the sky. I looked and looked and looked, and it was right overhead. And I finally found this little thing that looked like a dipper. And I got so excited about it. And then maybe several weeks later, someone said, well, dummy, that's not the Big Dipper. That's the Seven Sisters. It's over here. So if you've ever been in that situation, okay, that's me, all right? But it starts off and it shows you the Big Dipper, okay? And from there, and how to find it, and from there, it gets into the constellations. It has star charts, and using the Big Dipper, it actually points to all the other constellations. So first of all, you find all the bright stars, and that leads you to the bright constellations. And it takes you, and you can test yourself. Here it is with the lines. Of course, when you look at the sky, there are no lines. You say, well, okay, here's the charioteer. Here are the twins. Here's Orion. Question is right over there. So you can actually teach yourself and then take this thing out and use it under the stars. Then it has a whole thing on stargazing equipment, binoculars, telescopes, lenses, all that gibberish about focal length and magnitude and power and all that, magnification power, that kind of thing. It explains all that here. It's at a top level, but you get a tremendous sense of what's going on. Then the next thing it goes through is deep sky objects. Once you've learned the constellations, it'll show you where these things are. Now you'll say, well, my telescope's got a go-to on it. Why would I need all this stuff? Why do I need to know any of this stuff? I've been in scouting for 35 years. And one thing I've learned is in the backcountry, always carry a map. Yes, you have a GPS, but you always have to have a backup system. It also allows you to find things that maybe are not on your go-to telescope. So I still would encourage people, at least in my view, to learn the constellations. It's kind of a roadmap to the universe. So anyway, it goes through here. There's a bit on planets and how to observe them. There is a bit on astrophotography at the very beginning. And then I just feel like this is a great book. I took the time to go through this in detail because this is kind of a introduction to the next one I want to share. And I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the next one. The next one is by actually two authors. One of them is the same guy, Terence Dickinson, but this is called The Backyard Astronomer's Guide. Now, this goes into much more detail than the first one. It's in three different parts. The first part is equipment, binoculars, and telescopes. The second is observing the night sky and how you would go about the planning part of it. And then this would, what Daniel was saying, it goes a little bit into astrophotography. So if you're interested and you think, someday I want to do that, this is a great place to start. So these two books, to me, are probably the best books that I could recommend for people. This is more in depth. This is for someone to say, okay, I know the constellations, or I really would like to get into astronomy now, and I'll learn this other stuff as I go. This is going to give you an awful lot of good information. I have the third edition, The Backyard Astronomers. This is the second. There is a third edition out. It has a picture of the Horsehead Nebula on the front of it, but you can get these, and they're well worth the price. Those are the two. Now I'm going to very quickly, if I still have a little bit of time, I want to. I'd like to show you a couple things that I think are really good as far as planning an observation. Of course, you have the wonderful things you get in Astronomy Magazine and Sky and Telescope every month. So that's a planning tool. Another book is called Turn Left at Orion. It's by an Italian guy and Dan M. Davis. And what this book does is it tells you what to observe, when to observe it, and how, both with binoculars and telescope. Now, if you guys, some of you may be waiting for a telescope. In the pandemic, you may have to wait a while. If you have a pair of binoculars, you can start right now because there's things up there that you actually see better through binoculars than you can through a telescope. So this book will handle both. And what it does, I'll just show you an illustration, is it'll say, okay, in the constellation of the Big Dog, there is an open cluster called M41. And what it does is it shows you kind of where this is. Here's a picture of the Orion and the Big Dog, but then it'll actually show you that nebula looks through a finder scope, and then a drawing of what it looks like through a small telescope. So you actually get to see what you're looking for. And there's stuff here that tells you about this stuff. It's a great, great way of maybe say, I want to take control of this thing, because all I get on my go-to thing is like M41, M42, M43. If you'd like to find out a little more about what you're trying to see, this will provide that. It's kind of a guide. It doesn't give you everything, but it gives you the brighter things for small telescopes and for binoculars. So that's turn left at Orion. The next thing is published by Sky and Telescope. For those of you, and I'm kind of getting into this, binocular highlights. This does basically, it actually specifically tells you about 109 objects you can see with just binoculars, preferably with a tripod. But it's organized by date, and there's color diagrams of where these things are, and it is a lot easier to use than, say, if you never used a telescope before. If you have a pair of binoculars, it's a great way to start getting used to the sky, and you actually can use both. When we had the comet that came last fall, we first spotted it and got the full thing through binoculars. So again, I like this one, the binocular highlights. And then there's a couple others. I don't know if you've heard of the person or a lady by the name of Sue French. She wrote Sky and Telescope magazine for years and years, and was acclaimed by her write-ups of the different nebulae and galaxies and stuff. She wrote a book called Deep Sky Wonders, which I got, and Sky and Telescope has actually put those things together and published them in a book. And it's a beautiful book. And she does she'll tell you what these nebulae really are, what the galaxies are, something about them, the science behind it, as well as where to find them. It's a tremendous planning resource. This is for people who really want to get beyond, say, just the big stuff, the Pleiades, the Hyades, and all the rest of it, okay? Very quickly, and since John put this on the website, I'm going to just tell you about these. Sky and Telescope also publishes an atlas, pocket atlas. Not necessary for everything, but if you get into deep sky objects, by that I mean the nebulae and the galaxies and things like that, this is actually kind of like a roadmap. It'll help you find the things, because sometimes it can be a little tricky, but it has star charts of all these things. And of course, if you already know the constellations, it helps. Okay, the Charioteer is right over here. So right over my roof, it has all the stars there. So you start looking through here, and you can actually, this can help you. In the old days, before we had GoTo, we had to use like a major bright star, and then slew over here until we found the thing. This is what we would use, and I still like these things. I'm old-fashioned, but I like these things. The last thing I want to share with you, I don't know if any of you have ever done this or not, but I will tell you that I enjoy reading the articles in Sky and Telescope, but some of the terminology they use, I'm not all sure about, okay? Well, I found this book. One more, John, I'm done. It's called Astronomy, a Self-Teaching Guide. Is in its 8th edition by Diana Moke. And this is used as a companion text to a lot of astronomy courses around the country. but it goes through and it defines all of the all of the terms you're going to run into in like astronomy magazine, sky and telescope. It helps you understand what you're talking or what they're talking about and gives you a greater appreciation. So, astronomy is a lifelong hobby. And I think the thing that we all share with this thing is the deep wonder and the beauty of it all. It's just to me phenomenal. And one thing I have learned is the more you know, the more wondrous it becomes.